Raegan Swanson, thanks so much for joining us. The ArQuives was founded in 1973 as the Canadian Gay Liberation Movement Archives. How was it founded and why?
The creation of the ArQuives was really built out of the Body Politic newspaper. So in 1971, the first edition of the Body Politic came out and it featured material from across Canada. And by 73, they realized that they had really started a little tiny history collection, and they decided that what they would do is they would dedicate some of their space to being an archive proper and use the material that was coming in from across Canada to really be the foundation of the collection.
In 1975, the name changed to the Canadian Gay Archives,
Yes.
and then later on to the Canadian Lesbian and Gay Archives.
Yes.
And I think very recently it became the ArQuives.
ArQuives, yes.
How come the change?
Well, the latest change was absolutely necessary because our collection has always been LGBTIQ+. So the name did not reflect what the actual mandate or even the collections were here. So it was really exclusionary, and it had to be changed so that folks would be willing and even want to associate with us. We wanted to make sure that they were included, and because the way we talk about gender and sexuality changes so much just year by year, we knew that we couldn't try to keep an initialism in the title. And so what we did was we found a new word, and we created a new word and decided that this was the word that we were going to make to represent what we were.
Could you tell us a bit about your collection? I know and I understand that you've got the largest collection in the world of LGBTIQ periodicals.
Yes.
But it's not just periodicals, is it, that you've got?
No. So we've got 4 distinct collections. The first is the library, which holds the books, the monographs, and the periodical collections. Within that, we've got everything from rare books to pornography to, sociology textbooks. You've got things in many different languages as well. So obviously English and French, because we're here in Canada, but also, German textbooks from the 1890s. We've got stuff from Germany, Russia, France, all over the place. The second collection is the archival collection, which is the largest collection we have. So those are the personal papers and organizational records of groups, people from across Canada, primarily. We do have some folks that are from outside of Canada, but it's always because they've made an impact in Canada that we've collected them. The third collection is our artifact and artwork collection. So it's a couple thousand, I'd say just over 5,000 items that have been cataloged at the moment, so it's probably quite a bit higher. And that includes our national portrait collection that we have about 75, soon to be 79 portraits in. And then the final collection is our reference collection. So this is really when folks come to us without really having a subject or a thesis statement. We kind of start them off slowly, giving them some subject files, people, places, organizations, events, so that they can kind of dip their feet into the history and figure out where they want to go.
Because you also hold events, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Can you tell us a bit about those?
So we've got 3 different types of programming that happens here. I guess 4 really, because we do special events, including talks and panels and discussions, workshops, things like that. We do tours of the house, which include usually grade 8 to grade 12. School groups, as well as university groups and community organizations. And then we do 2 different types of walking tours. So those are walking tours of the village as it is now, but also different areas of Toronto that have been frequented or were a place of meeting for LGBTQ2+ folks.
I did the tour on Thursday.
Yeah.
Fantastic, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
How do you decide what to visit and what to talk about?
It's really hard. We usually start with a really, really long list and then figure out what we can fit into 90 minutes. And sometimes that changes based on information that we have and the research we do. Sometimes we change it every once in a while. And we listen to the feedback of the community. So if they want more information about a certain thing, then we try to include that in the tour. But it's a lot of research that goes into it before the walk actually happens.
Have you got any favourite historical anecdotes of Toronto?
I always enjoy listening to the stories about the queer spaces. So the spaces where queer and trans folk felt that they found community, and listening to how that changes over time. So it might be one spot for a while, but then it changes based on, everything from music popularity to just finding a new place. And so I enjoyed those, but the really moving and heartwarming stories are about how community kind of comes together and how they find each other. So I can't really pick just one, but I love listening to the stories. That, and when people get really upset and take to the streets, I also love hearing those stories.
Could you tell us a bit more about the National Portrait Collection?
Yeah. So the National Portrait Collection was founded in our 40th year. So a few years back. 40th? Yeah, probably. Possibly 30th. I'm not sure. So in the 1990s it was created, and it was to memorialize or to pay homage to folks who have had an impact on LGBTIQ+ lives in Canada. It started off fairly small, but it's grown to about 75 portraits. Every couple of years we add a few more portraits to it. So what we do is we commission new portraits if folks are still around. If they have passed, then we work with other families or executors or friends to try to make sure that we're capturing the right kind of portrait. And then we add it to the collection. So this is one of our most requested items for exhibition, and we've got, I want to say, 3 exhibits up right now across Ontario that are showcasing them. And we've got 4 new portraits that are going to be added this fall. And as we round out to our 50th year, we'll be adding a lot more portraits because want to really celebrate the folks whose collections we have a lot of the collections of the folks that are in our portrait collection, but want to really celebrate them and the work they've done for LGBTQ2+ folks here.
The archives as a whole, what's your favourite part of the collection?
I'm an archivist by training, so I gravitate towards the archival collections. Right now, my favorite collection is that of Mira Soleil Ross, who is a transsexual artist and activist who is active here in Toronto and in Montreal as well. Her collection is artistic. She did a lot of video art, but she also created a very important zine called Gender Trash from Hell. Later it was just called Gender Trash. And the artifacts that she has are also associated with her work as a playwright and her activist work and everything else. It just makes it one of the best collections.
How do you come by the collection? Is it donated or do you reach out?
It's a little bit of both. At the beginning of our organization, it's always been passive collecting, so what was brought to us. Over the last couple of years, it's very much turned into more active collecting and going out to community members and asking for material. Partly because if you don't ask, you are going to run the risk of capturing only one type of history, and that's a history that is usually more privileged and a history that is, going to be of just those people who think that their stuff deserves a home, rather than the people who are, don't necessarily have the means to take a day off work and bring boxes to our collection itself. So trying to be really much more active in how we collect.
What are you most proud of with the collection, with the archives?
I think that I'm actually just proud of its existence. We're one of the oldest LGBTQ2+ archives in the world. I think we're the second oldest, I want to say, that has had a steady existence. And so it is pride in our volunteers, because for about the first 30 years, it was only volunteer run. and it's only in the last like 10 years that we've actually had staff. So the work of those folks keeping this place alive through, you know, all the police raids, because we had police raids on our archive, we through bathhouse raids, through the AIDS and HIV epidemics, you know, this place is kept on because the community knew it was important, and I'm proud of our volunteers.
What are the biggest challenges that the archive face?
The same as most archives and most libraries and museums, which is space and money. We're not government funded, we're completely independent, which means that our organization relies on community for operating funds. So while we can get a couple of grants for projects, to keep the lights on, to pay the rent, things like that, that is all the community that pitches in for that. So it makes, you know, finances a little precarious at times. But space is definitely growing concern, because when we moved into this building in 2009, it was already too small, and we've had to keep 2 other storage spaces as well. And you can't necessarily see it right now, but there's boxes stacked on the floor around us because we're just out of room. So we don't want to turn collections away, which means we invest more money in offsite storage, which means they're less accessible. So we're really trying to figure out how we can serve the community, because we do have a lot of researchers coming in from around the world, but at the same time not break our pocketbook as we try to keep everything together.
So you were talking about reaching out and receiving donations. How difficult is it to reach out?
It depends. There's obviously political factors, racial factors. This organization was founded by white cis gay men, and there hasn't always been easy relationships with other members of the community. So it is working to establish those relationships before you're even asking for the collections, right? You want to make sure people feel safe and comfortable, and that they feel that their collections will be, one, valued, but also taken care of. So there's a lot of legwork that goes in before a collection is even like thinking of passing through our doors. So it seems like slow work, but it is an organization that hasn't been approaching these communities for 40 years, and it does feel like they have been left out. So definitely a slow moving process as we try to build those relationships.
What's your membership like in terms of numbers?
So as a charity and an organization that is has a membership, we've got about 300 members themselves, and then we've got about another 100 folks that come in to do research on a regular basis. And then on top of that, you've got the membership of folks who have contacts from outside, so outside Toronto proper, whatnot. So a couple hundred. We really do have a wide range of age ranges. We've got some volunteers that are in the first year of university, so 18, and then we've got some volunteers that have been here for 42 years. So it's really a mix, and our volunteer base, because we're so close to so many universities, we've got young folks that are literally on waiting lists to come in and find projects to work on. So
that was my next question.
Yeah.
About the students and people at universities who can come in and do research.
Yep, they do research. Often I guess in 2018 we had about 14 interns from the various programs around the GTA. But often then they stay on as volunteers. So we're very lucky that way, because there is a formal museum, library, archives school at the University of Toronto, plus photo preservation, film preservation at Ryerson and OCAD. And then you've got all the colleges where you've got library techs going. So we're very lucky in the young folks that are here and engaging with the collection. And it's just great.
And you've got a board and everything as well, don't you?
So it's a board of 9, and then each of the boards sits on a different committee. So the committee structure was what ran the organization when there was no staff at all. So you've got one committee that works with fundraising, another committee that helps like do the processing of the collections. Other committees do newsletters and now social media. So we really have a lot of reliance on the board and on the committees that kind of keep this place going while I run around and do the other things.
A couple more questions. How did you get involved, and what does your role involve?
So I actually was an intern here when I was a master's student at the University of Toronto. So I worked on a collection called The Coming Out Show, and it basically changed my path professionally. After several, I guess it was about 8 years, I saw the posting come up for this job, and I've been working all over Canada. So I decided that I was going to see if I could come back, and I was thrilled that I was able to. Most of my professional experience and my current PhD work is on community archives and their importance and just general awesomeness. So now most of what I do is not archival, but it is very much in the spirit of the community archive as an important community history maker and keeper.
What are your hopes for the future of the archives?
We need a new space. And so we've been working on museum feasibility studies right now and new space feasibility studies. So looking at what we can do to make our space better. We get a lot of demand from the community that right now we just can't meet because we don't have permanent exhibition space and we don't have formal education curriculum-based programming. So those are two immediate things, but as we're rounding up and getting ready for the 50th anniversary, we're looking to how we can fill other kind of programming gaps. But really it's going to be focused on programming and making sure the space is accessible for everybody.
And finally, if people want to find out more or donate or become members, is there a website?
Of course. So we're at ArQuives, ArQuives.ca. And we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Vimeo at ArQuives as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.